I always believed marriage was built on trust, support, and love. That's what I thought I had with Daniel, my husband of 5 years. He was charming, ambitious, and seemed to be proud of everything I achieved. At least, that's what I convinced myself to believe. But nothing could prepare me for the shocking betrayal that unfolded on the morning of the most important day of my career. For months, I had been preparing for a career-changing meeting, a high-stakes pitch to the board of directors of a multinational corporation. My entire team had poured their energy into this project, but I was the lead, the one responsible for delivering it. If the pitch went well, not only would it secure the contract for my company, but it would also put me in line for a long-awaited promotion. The night before, I barely slept. Excitement and nervousness danced in my stomach, but I was ready. Or so I thought at 7 a.m. I was already dressed in my sharp navy suit, my presentation materials neatly packed into my laptop bag. I walked into the kitchen where Daniel was making coffee. Usually, it was my job to make the coffee, but today he insisted. "Relax, babe," he said with a reassuring smile. "You need to focus on your big day. Let me take care of you." I smiled back, grateful for his thoughtfulness. He set down a steaming mug of coffee on the counter, just the way I liked it, a touch of cream, 2 sugars. But here's the thing, something about the way he watched me take that first sip didn't sit right. His eyes lingered on me, almost expectant. I brushed it off as my nerves playing tricks on me. The coffee tasted fine, maybe a little bitter, but nothing unusual. I thanked him, kissed him goodbye, and rushed out the door. By the time I arrived at the company headquarters, I could feel the energy buzzing in the air. This was it, the moment I had been working toward for years. My colleagues greeted me with encouragement, and we set up in the sleek glass-walled conference room. But then, 20 minutes into the meeting, something strange started happening. At first, it was subtle. My head felt heavier than usual, and my thoughts began to blur. I stumbled over a word in my introduction, then another. My palms were sweating, my vision slightly unfocused. I tried to shake it off, convincing myself it was just nerves. But the more I spoke, the worse it got. My tongue felt heavy. I kept losing my train of thought. My heart raced, and I felt a strange dizziness that didn't make sense. The board members exchanged confused glances. My boss looked at me with concern, whispering, "Are you all right?" And that's when I remembered Daniel's look, the way he had stared at me when I drank the coffee. A horrifying thought crossed my mind. Did he put something in my coffee? I fought to keep going, clinging to the fragments of clarity I had left. But deep down, fear began to coil around my chest. If Daniel had really sabotaged me, why, and more importantly, how was I going to survive this meeting if my own husband wanted me to fail? I gripped the edge of the podium, trying to steady myself as the dizziness threatened to pull me under. My vision blurred, the polished conference table shimmering like waves on water. My voice cracked as I forced myself to continue the presentation, but my confidence, the very thing I had been building for months, was slipping through my fingers. As I was saying, I stammered, clicking through my slides. My words felt disconnected, like I was hearing myself speak from far away. This strategy will, maximize long-term stakeholder value. A man in a gray suit leaned forward, brows furrowed. "Excuse me, could you clarify what you mean by that?" I froze. The answer was simple, something I could explain in my sleep, but in that moment, the clarity was gone. My mind was a foggy maze, and I couldn't find the words. "Why, yes, of course," I muttered, trying to steady my breath. But before I could respond, my boss, Mr. Grant, jumped in. "What she means is that the strategy integrates both cost-saving measures and innovative growth opportunities. We've run simulations, and the projections are promising." His intervention saved me from further humiliation, but I could see the doubt in the room. The board members exchanged glances, whispers passing among them. My reputation, my credibility, everything I had built was unraveling. And deep down, I knew this wasn't nerves. I had presented in front of hundreds before. I had never lost my composure like this. Something was wrong. Something inside me was fighting against me. The coffee. The realization hit me like ice water. I thought back to that morning, Daniel's insistence on making it. The way he pushed the mug toward me, his eyes fixed as I took the first sip. No, He wouldn't. He couldn't. This was the man I had trusted with my life, the man who vowed to love me, protect me. But then again, hadn't there been signs, little things I ignored, like the time I received a recognition award at work, and Daniel's smile didn't quite reach his eyes? Or the sarcastic remarks he made when I stayed late at the office, saying things like, "Don't work too hard, or you'll forget you're married." He had brushed them off as jokes, but there was always a sharpness to them. And just last week, when I told him about the promotion I could get if this meeting went well, his first response wasn't congratulations. It was, "So you'll be making more than me now." I had laughed it off, kissing his cheek. "It's not a competition, babe, we're a team." But maybe he didn't see it that way. Back in the meeting room, I forced myself to continue. My body felt like it was betraying me, but I clung to every ounce of strength I had left. If Daniel really had put something in my coffee, I couldn't let him win. As I stumbled through the slides, my boss gave me small nods of encouragement, stepping in occasionally to clarify points I couldn't articulate. Somehow, by the grace of sheer willpower, we made it to the end. When the final slide clicked off, silence filled the room. Then one of the board members, a sharp-eyed woman named Ms. Patel, leaned forward. "Thank you, Ms. Carter," she said slowly. "You seemed a little unwell today. Is everything all right?" I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "Yes, just a bit under the weather. I apologize." She studied me for a moment longer, then nodded. "Well, despite that, your research is solid. We'll be reviewing the details and getting back to you." Relief washed over me. Somehow, I had survived, but the moment I stepped out of that room, the fear came crashing back. My head was pounding, my heart racing. Something was definitely in that coffee, and I had a sickening feeling I knew exactly who was behind it. When I got home that evening, Daniel was waiting for me, sitting on the couch with a glass of wine. He looked up with an innocent smile. "How did it go?" he asked. Something in his tone too casual, too eager made my skin crawl. I forced a tight smile. "It went fine." He raised an eyebrow. "Just fine, not great." I shrugged, hiding the storm of emotions inside me. If my suspicion was true, if he had really sabotaged me, then I couldn't confront him yet. Not without proof, just tired. I said, excusing myself, to the bedroom. But as I lay there, staring at the ceiling, one thought consumed me. If my own husband wanted me to fail, what else was he capable of? That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, the meeting replayed in my mind, the blank stares from the board, the judgment in their whispers, the fog that clouded my brain. And then Daniel's face, that smile, that question, not great. I tossed and turned until finally I sat up. If my instincts were right, I couldn't just let this go. I needed proof. The next morning, Daniel left early for work. The moment I heard the front door click shut, I headed for the kitchen. I scanned the counter, the cupboards, the trash. At first, nothing. But then, tucked behind the coffee canister, I found it, a small, unlabeled plastic vial. My heart thudded in my chest. I picked it up carefully, unscrewing the cap. The faint smell was bitter, chemical, unfamiliar. My stomach twisted. Was this what he slipped into my drink? I snapped the cap back on and shoved the vial into my bag. I wasn't a scientist, but I knew someone who could help. My friend Lena worked in a lab at the university. She'd know what this was. That afternoon, I met her for coffee, real coffee. This time, the safe kind I ordered myself. She raised an eyebrow when I slid the vial across the table. "Where did you get this?" she asked. "From my kitchen." I whispered, "Daniel's been acting strange. Yesterday, during my big presentation, I felt like I was drugged. I think he put this in my coffee." Her eyes widened. "That's serious, Emily. You can't just accuse him without knowing." "I know. That's why I need you to test it, please." She hesitated, then nodded. "All right, I'll run it through some basic screens. Give me a couple of days." I thanked her, trying to hold back tears. When I got home that evening, Daniel was waiting again, this time with takeout on the table and candles lit. "Surprise," he said cheerfully. "I figured you could use a nice dinner after yesterday." The gesture would have seemed sweet if I didn't know better. I forced a smile, sitting down across from him. "That's thoughtful of you." As we ate, he asked me question after question about the meeting, not in the usual supportive way, but with a kind of probing curiosity. "So, did anyone notice you weren't at your best? Did your boss seem disappointed?" I lied smoothly. No, actually, they were impressed. I think it went really well. His fork froze midair. Just for a second, his jaw tightened. Then, just as quickly, he smiled. "That's great, really great." But I saw that flicker of disappointment in his eyes. He wanted me to fail. The realization made me feel sick. Over the next 2 days, I played the part of the loving wife, laughing at his jokes, kissing him goodnight. But inside, I was unraveling. Every word he spoke felt like a lie. Every touch felt like poison. Finally, Lena called. "Emily, you need to come to the lab, now." My hands shook as I drove over. When I arrived, she pulled me into her office and shut the door. "It's worse than I thought," she said, holding up a printed report. The vial contained a sedative, not lethal in small doses, but strong enough to cause confusion, dizziness, memory issues, everything you described. The room spun around me. I clutched the back of a chair to steady myself. "So it's true." I whispered. "He drugged me." Lena placed a hand on my arm. "Emily, you can't stay with him. This isn't just jealousy. It's dangerous. You need to protect yourself." Tears blurred my vision, but beneath the fear, something else was rising. Anger. For years, I had supported Daniel through his failures, his frustrations, his insecurities. I had stood by him when he lost his job, when he doubted himself. And now, when it was my turn to shine, he tried to sabotage me. No, he wouldn't win. I went home that night with a plan. When Daniel walked in, whistling as if nothing was wrong, I greeted him with a smile. "Hey, I was thinking," I said sweetly, "maybe tomorrow morning you could make me coffee again. Just like before my meeting. It was perfect." His eyes lit up. Really, of course. And in that moment, I knew. He thought he had fooled me. He thought I was still blind. But what he didn't know was that the game had just shifted. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was about to turn the tables. The next morning, Daniel was up early in the kitchen, humming to himself. The smell of coffee drifted into the bedroom, bittersweet and sharp. I sat at the table, watching carefully as he poured the steaming liquid into a mug and slid it across to me. "There you go," he said warmly. "Just the way you like it." My hand trembled as I lifted the cup. Not from fear anymore, from rage I struggled to contain. I brought the coffee to my lips, pretending to sip, but in reality, I didn't let a drop touch my tongue. Instead, while Daniel turned away to grab his toast, I discreetly poured a bit into a small vial I had hidden in my robe pocket. Evidence. Delicious. I lied, setting the mug down. He smiled proudly, as if he'd done me some great service. But the truth was about to crush him. That afternoon, I met Lena at the university again and handed her the vial. "Can you test this too? I think he tried it again." She nodded grimly. "If it's positive, Emily, you'll have the proof you need." Hours later, my phone buzzed. "It was Lena." "Emily," she said, her voice urgent. "The coffee you gave me today tested positive for the same sedative. He's still doing it." I felt the last remnants of hope die inside me. There was no mistake. No misunderstanding. Daniel, the man I married, the man who vowed to love me, was drugging me. Not once, not by accident, but deliberately, and now he was going to pay. That night I set the stage. When Daniel came home, I greeted him with dinner and wine. I smiled, laughed at his stories, and acted as if everything was perfectly normal. Halfway through the meal, I leaned forward. "You know." I said softly, "I was thinking, maybe we should record one of our mornings like a little routine video. You making me coffee, me getting ready for work. It'd be fun, kind of like a couple's vlog." He chuckled. "A vlog, you, that's cute." "Yeah." I pressed, keeping my tone light. "We could start tomorrow, just for fun. What do you say?" He hesitated for a moment, then shrugged. "Sure, why not?" "Perfect." The next morning, I set up my phone on the counter, pretending it was for our couple's vlog. Daniel played along, hamming it up for the camera. And here we have my beautiful wife, Emily, starting her day with a fresh cup of coffee made by yours truly. He grinned as he reached for the vial hidden behind the canister, not realizing that the camera captured everything: his sly glance, the quick twist of the cap, the few drops slipping into my mug. I forced myself not to react. I smiled at the camera, lifted the cup, and pretended to take a sip. Inside, my heart was pounding so loudly I thought it might burst, but I had him. Finally, I had him. That evening, I confronted him. I placed my phone on the table between us and hit play. Daniel's smug grin filled the screen. His hands, his movements, the vial, the proof. His face went pale. Emily, wait, it's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like. I snapped, my voice shaking with fury. You drugged me before the most important meeting of my life. You tried to ruin me. I was just trying to help. He stammered. You get so nervous before these things. I thought if you were calmer. Don't lie to me. I shouted. This wasn't about helping. You wanted me to fail. You couldn't stand the thought of me succeeding while you were stuck in your failures. You wanted to drag me down with you. He froze, unable to speak. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was my ragged breathing. Then quietly I said, I already went to the lab. I already had your coffee tested. Twice. Both times it came back positive for sedatives. His jaw dropped. You think you're clever, Daniel, but you're not. You're pathetic. The fallout was swift. The next day, I took the video and lab results to an attorney. They were horrified. Within a week, divorce papers were filed. Restraining orders followed soon after. Daniel tried to fight it at first, calling, begging, insisting it was all a misunderstanding, but the evidence was undeniable. The video, the lab reports, even Lena's testimony, it all painted a clear picture. He was exposed, and me, I didn't just survive, I thrived. Word of what happened spread quietly among my colleagues, and instead of seeing me as weak or damaged, they admired my strength for standing up to him. My boss even told me, Emily, if you can handle this with such resilience, you can handle anything this job throws at you. The promotion I thought I lost, it came back, officially. I wasn't just part of the company's future, I was the future. Months later, as I stood in my new office looking out at the skyline, I realized something. Daniel had tried to poison my dreams. He wanted me to stumble, to doubt myself, to give up. But all he did was light a fire inside me. He thought I would fail. Instead, I rose higher than ever, and the best part, the last time I saw him in that courtroom as the judge read out the restraining order and finalized the divorce, he looked at me with wide, disbelieving eyes. His jaw dropped, because for the first time he understood the truth. He hadn't destroyed me. He had created a stronger version of me, one he could never touch again.